Diana McIntosh is, in a word, creative. She has led an active career as a composer and performer, with her unique talent and imagination on display for audiences throughout Canada, widely in the United States, parts of Europe, and in Kenya, Africa. Diana McIntosh is also co-artistic director of Groundswell and curator of their last concert this season, GS5 Made in Canada. She joins me now to tell us about the show.
Yes,
thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's nice to have you back. It's been a little while.
Yes, it has.
I'd like to begin by going back, not to 1991 when Groundswell came to be, but even before that, if it's all right, to 1977, when you and Ann Southam founded Music Inter Alia. What was the contemporary music scene like in Winnipeg then?
There certainly wasn't a series of concerts featuring contemporary music. And Anne, who was one of my best friends, went with me to form Music Inter Alia. That was my husband's suggested name because we did some sort of theatrical works. So yes, I ran that for I've forgotten about. I can't remember, 12, 13 years, for quite a while. And we had several concerts a year, and it was the first new music series of concerts. And then eventually we joined with two other groups and formed Groundswell.
Groundswell as it is today.
28 or 9 years ago, believe it or not. I've been an artistic director since the last century, for heaven's sake.
Does it feel? Does it feel like it's been 4 decades?
No.
Yeah, it really doesn't. Eh? What made Winnipeg ripe to be it was the first new music series in Western Canada, right?
I don't know what made it ripe, but we still don't have huge audiences, but we certainly didn't then. I don't know, but somehow rather it appealed, and we continued on for quite a while. We were supported by the Canada Council and Manitoba Arts Council. So it was a success, but I was glad to join up with other groups because when I ran Music Inter Alia, I ran the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And it's nice just to, what we do on Groundswell is there are 4 artistic curators, as you probably know, and each one of us, along with many other concerts we work together on, we each curate one concert, and we discuss this a couple of years ahead, and a program that interests us, but we each are the curators of each concert. And when you're a curator, you are responsible for every detail. I mean, every detail. But it's very interesting.
Well, the reason why I bring all of this up is because you can clearly still see the spirit of Music Inter Alia, which means music amongst other things, right?
Yes.
It translates as in the Groundswell programming. I mean, it's on the website. I voiced the commercial. Groundswell features everything from inspiring interpretations of 20th century classics to exciting fusions of visual art, theater, dance, and the written word. That is music amongst other things. It's a very exciting thing for audiences, and I imagine for performers and composers as well. Mm-hmm. Oh, it really is. So you yourself have done much of this fusion in your own composing, in your own performing. Words like distinctive, innovative, witty, adventurous regularly appear in profiles. As is noted on the Groundswell website, you talk about your intrepid spirit that embraces the rugged landscape as a mountain climber. Can you talk about how mountains and creativity go hand in hand for you? My muses are in the Rockies, are in the mountains, and I get a lot of inspiration hiking in the mountains. And my husband and I, quite a number of years ago, discovered that you could rent, if you stayed at various lodges, you could hire a professional mountain guide, and we started to climb mountains, not huge mountains, but we went up to I think 11,000 feet. Periodically, and we ended up climbing. I climbed 1 or 2 in Switzerland when we were over there, but we climbed a number of Rockies, a number of mountains, particularly in the Lake O'Hara area, which is beautiful in the Rockies in BC. So yeah, it was exciting, and that inspired me to do a lot of writing. What is it about being in the mountains that's inspiring for you? I can't really answer that, but it's a rarefied atmosphere, the same as being on a glacier, which is one of the pieces on the CD. Being on a glacier, it's beautiful, it's quiet, it's just pure beauty.
it's hard to explain in words, but I try to express it in a lot of the pieces I've written that are directly or indirectly inspired by mountains.
I think that, just going for a walk is one of those things that we regularly do, just to clear our head, as we often say.
Yeah,
I mean, composers have often done it, like Beethoven did it, and Mahler. They always went for their daily walks, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Does just walking and getting outside and physical activity really tie into music that clearly for you then? Is it something that you have to do? It's almost a part of your being?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
It really is a pretty cool thing. So let's talk about this program that you've created. It's called Made in Canada, GS5.
Yeah.
There are, of course, many different terrains to explore in Canada. Where did you begin with this program?
Well, the four artistic directors, as I say, discuss what our programs will be. We have to have that all is somewhat finalized a good 2 years before. And so I said, I don't know where this came from, but I said, Canada has so many wonderful, unique, original composers. I'd like to do a whole program of Canadian music by Canadian composers, and I'd like to have it played by Canadian musicians. And that's how it turned out. So I decided to call it Made in Canada.
So can you take us through the program? Where do we begin in the vastness of Canada and its numerous composers and players?
Yeah. Well, this program, I think, represents kind of a cross section of the wide variety of music written by Canadian composers. And I mean, in just one program, you can only do so much. But I knew some pieces that I wanted to put on the program, but and I knew the musicians I wanted. So one of the things I did, I decided I would like to have the program start with 3 solo works, which is quite unusual, actually. And so I asked the musicians, 2 or 3 musicians that I had in mind for this, what do you have a suggestion of a solo work? I'm using flute and cello and bassoon and piano and spoken text in this concert. Do you have a suggestion of a piece that you'd like to play, even if I don't know it? Do you have a suggestion? And each of them had 3 musicians, Sean Taubner, who's a wonderful cellist, Martha Durkin, an amazing flute player, and Vincent Ellen bassoon. And each of them came up with a suggestion and told me about the work. And I said, great, that's how we'll start the program. So that's how it starts. And then after the intermission are 2 pieces by Ken Nichols, who lives in Brandon. And these are a bit more traditional writing, very, very melodic, very beautiful pieces, 2 pieces that will be played by Robin McMillan on English horn and Gwen Beamish on piano. And then I commissioned a work from a very extraordinarily talented young composer, Scott Jodoin, who lives in Steinbach. And I told him what the concert was about. I'd like him to write a piece for flute, cello, and live electronics, which he's very remarkably good at. And so he came up with, and all the rehearsals have been at my house in the last number of weeks, and his work is called 3 Vignettes of Northwestern Ontario. So it's a very Canadian work, and this will be its world premiere, which is pretty exciting. But again, his name is Scott Jodoin, very talented young man. And so that ends the program. In the middle, at the end of the first half, I'm doing a piece of mine called Patterns for tape and bassoon and spoken text on Canada. It's about Canada geese and their migrations, and it's on a poem that I wrote about Canada geese and their migrations. So it's with spoken text and bassoon and tape, pre-recorded tape. And this reminds me of an amusing incident about this. My husband and I enjoyed going to St. Vital Park. Have you ever hiked around St. Vital? It's a lovely little park.
It is.
I love it. And right now, all the geese have come back, and it's full of geese. But we were there one day, and my husband noticed a young boy, maybe around 6 years old, and he was chasing the geese. And it's none of our business, but my husband didn't like it. He didn't think he should. Maybe he thought maybe he should show him he shouldn't do that. So he went over to this little boy, and he said, it's not very nice to chase the geese. Would you like me to chase you? And the little guy looked up at him with a big smile and said, yeah. It was so funny. Very, very funny. So Grant's lesson was kind of lost on this kid, but it was a funny incident. I've never forgotten it. Anyhow, that's the piece that I'm doing on the program.
So
it's called Patterns, by the way.
Patterns. And to me, one of the things that in your speaking about the program, one of the things that really strikes me is that it is collaborative. It's sort of uniquely Canadian in a way, because we see ourselves as so friendly, so giving.
Yeah.
And just to begin the program by turning to the performers and saying, I'm curating this show, but what would you like to perform?
It was a little unusual, yeah. They were delighted to do that.
It's got to be special for the performers as well.
Yeah.
And then one of the other things that really kind of strikes me is the variety that people are also getting. I mean, there's, I was just looking at the list of composers. There's music of Robert Aiken all the way up to a premiere by Scott Jodoin. And I went to school with Scott Jodoin. We were in the faculty.
You?
Yes, we were at the faculty at the same time, a couple years apart.
Interesting. Wow.
And so to be as recent as that and to go back to the music of Robert Aiken as well, there is a plethora for people to dive into.
Yeah.
I know that theatrics have often been a part of your performing.
Oh, I do a lot of theatrical works, yeah.
Yeah. Can people expect a theatrical element in this program as well?
Not it's not a lot. Only in my piece called Patterns, is with spoken text on a poem. I can't say it's exactly theatrical, but it's certainly it's text driven on the poem, and it's somewhat theatrical in the way I do it. But I just stand there and speak the text along with bassoon and tape, and no, there isn't another theatrical element in this particular program. But by the way, the three solo works that these three musicians suggested are by Jim Hiscott and Veronica Crosses and Robert Aiken. And those are the pieces that they suggested, and they're called Swirl, Under an Open Sky, which is typically Canadian, and Icicle by Robert Aiken. So
there's something really for everything, especially with the Winnipeg connection with Jim Hiscott, and again with Scott Jodoin.
Yeah.
There's really almost a wide swath of Canadiana in this program. Diana, I want to thank you so much for coming by Classic 107 today. It was a real pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure.
Groundswell's last concert in the 2018-19 season, GS5, Made in Canada, takes place Thursday, April 25th, 8 p.m. at Eckhart Grammaté Hall at the University of Winnipeg.